After their first love was brutally torn apart by a lie, Min-joon and Han Ji-eun found themselves forced together by a twist of fate. Little did they know, their heartbreaking separation was orchestrated by a so-called friend, Lee Jin-woo, whose jealousy turned a beautiful love story into a tale of betrayal. But a mysterious benefactor's intervention set a powerful plan in motion, forcing them to confront their past and revealing a truth that changed everything. Discover how a devastating lie was exposed and how true love found its second chance in a story where justice triumphs over deceit. The air in the university's prestigious design studio was thick with a tension so palpable it could be cut with a knife. Amidst the flurry of creative energy and whispered ambitions, a different kind of storm was brewing between two of its brightest stars. Min-joon, the scion of the renowned Kim architects, stood before the project board, a canvas of competing ideas, his posture radiating an arrogant disdain. He was the golden boy, a prodigy whose designs were lauded not just for their brilliance, but for a certain bold, uncompromising arrogance that mirrored his own persona. His world, once a perfectly polished sphere of privilege and promise, had been shattered 2 years ago by a single, seismic event: the sudden, inexplicable departure of his first love, Han Ji-eun. She had simply vanished, leaving behind nothing but a gaping void and 1,000 unanswered questions. Now, as if a ghost had walked back into his life, she was here again. Not as his lover, but as his fiercest competitor, his assigned partner for a high-stakes project that could either cement their futures or break them completely. Min-joon's initial shock, a cold wave that had seized him upon seeing her, had quickly given way to a searing, burning hatred. How dare she? How dare she return and occupy his space, his world, with such an air of quiet composure, as if the pain she had inflicted was a trivial memory? The wound she left was not just fresh, it was a gaping scar that throbbed with every glance he stole in her direction. He was a man consumed by the need for retribution, determined to make her feel every ounce of the silent agony he had endured. Ji-eun, on the other side of the room, felt the familiar pang of sorrow, a constant companion since she had made the impossible choice. It was now mixed with a hard, icy resolve. She saw the venom in Min-joon's eyes, the sharp, hostile glances he cast her way, and it was a mirror of her own knowing guilt. He saw her as a betrayer, but he could not see the silent sacrifice she had made. The memory of her father's desperate, tearful plea echoed in her mind, a tragic soundtrack to her life. His life, and the reputation of his small, struggling family business, hung by a thread, tangled in a web of crippling debt. The ruthless loan shark who held all the cards had presented her with a horrifying ultimatum: leave Min-joon, sever all ties, or watch her father pay the price. Min-joon, shielded by his family's prestige, was a symbol of everything the loan shark hated, a target that would be used to send a brutal message. Her silence had been her only defense, a shield forged from a terrible necessity. She had chosen to be the villain in his story to save her father from becoming a tragic footnote. His hatred, she reasoned, was a penance she had to endure, a heavy burden she carried willingly for a crime she couldn't explain. Their first project together, a collaborative design proposal, quickly devolved into a bitter battleground of passive-aggressive exchanges and veiled contempt. Their shared history was not a source of strength, but a weapon. Every design critique he offered was a sharp, calculated jab at their broken past. He would casually remark on her lack of commitment, her tendency to abandon things midway, knowing full well the subtext. She, in turn, would respond with a professional but equally cold detachment, her silence a defiant wall against his attacks. He was an open wound, raw and exposed, unable to hide the depth of his pain.
She was a closed book, her secrets locked away, protected by a wall of deliberate indifference. Their every interaction, from the shared blueprints to the stolen glances, was a testament to the bitter, tragic end of their first beautiful love.
The tension between Min-joon and Ji-eun was a quiet storm of resentment, but the university was buzzing with news of their new client. It was none other than the influential CEO Park So-joon, a man whose name carried immense weight in the city's elite circles. He had approached the university with a deeply personal request. He wanted a team to design a memorial garden for his late wife. This was no ordinary commission. It was a project of profound emotional significance. Yet, in a move that baffled everyone, he had specified a duo for the job. Not just any duo, but Min-joon and Ji-eun. CEO Park had watched their bitter rivalry from afar, and where others saw animosity, he saw a powerful, passionate dynamic. He believed that the intense fire between them could be channeled into something truly unique and meaningful. It was a calculated gamble, a deliberate push to force them into a collaboration they would have otherwise fiercely resisted. They were confined to a small private office, a space that felt less like a workspace and more like a pressure cooker. The air was thick with the ghost of their shared past, a silent presence that weighed on every word they didn't say, every glance they avoided. As they began their research for the project, a fragile truce settled between them. It was a silent agreement born of professional necessity, not personal forgiveness. Min-joon, still harboring his fierce resentment, maintained a cold distance, communicating only through curt technical directives. Ji-eun, for her part, met his hostility with a quiet, unwavering professionalism, her emotions locked away behind a carefully constructed facade. The hours were filled with the click of keyboards and the rustle of papers, a soundtrack to their strained coexistence. But then, an unexpected discovery shifted the ground beneath Ji-eun's feet. While searching for design inspiration on their shared computer, she stumbled upon a hidden folder buried deep in the archives. It was Min-joon's private project, a detailed and heartfelt plan for a rehabilitation center for underprivileged youth. This wasn't a recent creation. The files were dated from before she had left. As she scrolled through the meticulously crafted designs and the personal notes, a wave of powerful emotions washed over her. The Min-joon she saw in those documents was not the arrogant, resentful man she faced today. This was the Min-joon she had fallen in love with, the kind, compassionate dreamer, the man full of hope and a genuine desire to make the world a better place. Her heart ached with a pain that felt both old and new. Seeing his true nature laid bare confirmed a terrible truth she had long carried. Her sacrifice had been for the right reasons. The loan shark's chilling warning echoed in her mind, a cold whisper in the warmth of his dream project. He had been explicit. Any association with her would expose Min-joon's family and his burgeoning career to his ruthless world. He would use Min-joon's ambition as a weapon against him, and she had to choose between their love and his future. The painful choice she had made 2 years ago, to become his betrayer to save him, felt more justified now. A new thought began to take root in her mind, a suspicion that grew with every detail she uncovered. CEO Park's commission seemed strangely specific. His insistence on them working together, the personal nature of the project, it all felt less like a coincidence and more like a carefully orchestrated plan. Was he testing them, or was he trying to reveal something to them? The tension between Min-joon and Ji-eun began to undergo a subtle yet profound transformation. The pure, bitter hatred began to dissolve, replaced by a confusing, intoxicating mix of curiosity and longing. Their rivalry gave way to a fragile, unspoken truce, filled with unanswered questions and the faint, persistent glimmer of a shared past that was refusing to be forgotten. The enforced collaboration, initially a source of bitter friction, began to reveal a strange, almost forgotten rhythm.
The hours they spent together in their small office, surrounded by blueprints and design sketches, unearthed old habits and a silent understanding that had once been the very foundation of their relationship. They fell back into a familiar dance, a nonverbal communication where a glance from Min-joon could signal a design flaw, and a sharp intake of breath from Ji-eun could suggest a new direction. The animosity hadn't vanished entirely, but it was now a low hum beneath a rising tide of professional respect and, more confusingly, a sense of familiarity that felt like coming home. One late, quiet night, with only the soft glow of the desk lamp illuminating their workspace, they were meticulously going through CEO Park's personal files. They were looking for design inspiration, anything to help them capture the essence of his late wife. Suddenly, Ji-eun paused. Nestled among official documents was a faded, sepia-toned photograph of CEO Park's wife. But she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was another man, his face half obscured by shadow, but his distinctive, cruel-looking eyes were unmistakable. A cold shiver ran down Ji-eun's spine. It was the man who had tormented her father, the loan shark. Min-joon, noticing her stillness, leaned in to see what had caught her attention. His eyes widened in disbelief. The pieces of the puzzle, once scattered and seemingly unrelated, began to snap into place with a terrifying clarity. CEO Park wasn't just a client. He was a silent benefactor, a close friend of Ji-eun's father. He had seen the suffering the loan shark had inflicted and had quietly intervened, paying off the crippling debt to save his friend's family. He had orchestrated this entire project, not as a test of their skills, but as a carefully calculated chance for Min-joon and Ji-eun to reconnect and, most importantly, to uncover the truth that had been buried for 2 long, painful years. The truth hit Min-joon like a physical blow, a stunning force that knocked the air from his lungs. His hatred, a carefully constructed wall of anger and resentment, crumbled into dust. It wasn't just a memory, it was a living, breathing truth that replaced all his assumptions. Ji-eun's silence wasn't born of indifference or betrayal. It was an act of profound sacrifice, a testament to her love for him. She had chosen to be the villain in his story to save his reputation, his family, and his career from a ruthless enemy. He had been so consumed by his own pain that he had failed to see the depth of hers. He had been so blind. In that moment of shared vulnerability, their long-suppressed feelings came rushing back in a powerful emotional flood. A project meeting, meant to be about design, transformed into an unplanned confession. The words came in a torrent, a mix of apologies, forgotten memories, and a raw, honest exchange of the pain they had both endured. It was a cathartic release that broke the dam of their silent suffering. As they spoke, their hands, both resting on the blueprint of their shared future, brushed against each other. It was a small, accidental touch, but it was electric. It was a spark that ignited a flame they thought had been extinguished forever. This was no longer a choice they were making. It was an inevitability, a pull of destiny that was too strong to resist. The lines between professional rivalry and personal desire blurred and then vanished completely, and the raw, undeniable attraction they had once shared became the new, exhilarating reality.
The shocking truth, uncovered in CEO Park's personal files, was a key that unlocked a far more sinister reality. The man in the photograph, the one who had introduced Ji-eun's father to the loan shark, was not the brute who held the debts. It was the brute's associate, a ruthless business operator who just so happened to be the uncle of their mutual friend Lee Jin-woo. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place with a horrifying click. The betrayal hadn't been Ji-eun's at all. It had been Jin-woo's. Driven by a toxic cocktail of professional jealousy and unrequited love for Ji-eun, Jin-woo had orchestrated the entire plot. He had used his uncle to create the financial crisis for Ji-eun's father, knowing it would force her to make an impossible choice. His motive was clear: to tear Min-joon and Ji-eun apart, clearing the path for him to swoop in as her protector and win her heart in Min-joon's absence.
The years they had spent apart, the pain they had both endured, had all been meticulously planned by the person they had considered a friend. The revelation brought on a storm of conflicting emotions, a chaotic whirlwind of shock, fury, and sorrow. Min-joon, once consumed by a cold, burning hatred for Ji-eun, now felt a deep and overwhelming wave of compassion. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not the betrayer he had created in his mind, but a person who had carried an immense burden in silent isolation. He saw the pain in her eyes, the years of silent suffering she had endured to protect him from a threat he never even knew existed. He had been so utterly blinded by his own pain that he had failed to see hers. He had been cruel, unfair, and unforgiving. And the weight of his own actions now pressed down on him, suffocating him with a powerful sense of regret. All he wanted to do was hold her, to shield her from the world, and to promise he would never let her go again. Ji-eun, in turn, finally broke her silence. The truth, no longer her sole secret, was a burden she could finally lay down. A torrent of years of guilt, fear, and lonely sacrifice poured out of her. She recounted the threats, the sleepless nights, the heartbreaking decisions she had to make. Their words were no longer weapons, they were a balm, a healing ointment for the wounds they had both carried. They found solace in each other's arms, their old scars beginning to heal with the quiet, potent medicine of shared pain and honest conversation. The truth had not only exonerated Ji-eun, it had exposed a new, more sinister betrayal, one that was far more personal and insidious than they could have imagined. Their trust had been shattered, not by a lover's departure, but by a friend's calculated cruelty. The pain was still there, but it was a different kind of pain, a shared ache that brought them closer, forging a new bond that was stronger and more profound than their first love had ever been.
With the truth now laid bare, Min-joon and Ji-eun found an unexpected and powerful ally in CEO Park. The betrayal of Lee Jin-woo and the malicious schemes of his uncle were systematically unraveled. With CEO Park's influence and resources, the evidence was undeniable. Jin-woo's carefully constructed web of lies and deceit collapsed around him. His once promising reputation was shattered and his career lay in ruins, a fitting end for a man who had sought to destroy the happiness of others for his own selfish gain. Justice was served, not through vengeance, but through the patient, unwavering pursuit of truth. The Memorial Garden project, once a bitter point of contention, had become a profound symbol of their reunion. It was no longer just a design, it was a living narrative of their journey. Every pathway represented a step in their shared past, every flowering bush a moment of sacrifice, and the central tranquil pond a space for forgiveness. The garden was a masterpiece of emotional depth, a story told in stone and foliage. It was a project born of pain and hatred, yet transformed by honesty and resilience into a monument of love. On the day of its grand unveiling, the atmosphere was a mix of quiet reverence and hopeful anticipation. Surrounded by CEO Park, Min-joon's family, and a few close friends who had always believed in them, Min-joon stood beside Ji-eun. His hand found hers, not with the hesitant touch of a new beginning, but with the firm, confident grasp of a renewed commitment. The gesture was public, a silent declaration that their past was now a part of their story, not a shadow over their future. He turned to look into her eyes, and she saw the profound change in him. The fire of hatred that had once burned so fiercely was gone. In its place was a quiet, enduring warmth, a love that had been tested by the fiercest of flames and emerged stronger, more refined, and more beautiful than before. He had learned the hard way that true strength wasn't found in pride or anger, but in the courage to be vulnerable, the grace to forgive, and the wisdom to accept a difficult truth. His journey had stripped away his arrogance and left him with a humility he had never known. He pulled her closer, his voice a low, tender whisper meant only for her.
This time, he said, the words of promise he had held in his heart for 2 long, painful years, "I'm not letting you go." A deep, profound sense of peace washed over Ji-eun, a feeling she hadn't experienced since that fateful night 2 years ago. She leaned her head on his shoulder, a silent tear of relief tracing a path down her cheek. Their first love, they now understood, wasn't lost. It had simply been waiting for its second chance. It was a second chance born not from an easy path, but from the pain of a friend's betrayal and a twist of destiny that had forced them to confront their past and build a future rooted in unwavering honesty and an unbreakable love.